Alright guys, stream is going hot right now. Starting in a couple minutes before 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, my time. Hopefully everything will be good. I didn't check my internet speed, so I'm hoping everything is copacetic. Drink tonight, we're doing something a little healthier. Trying to get on a little health kick. We're doing some Gatorade. These new Gatorade flavors are pretty cool. This is the green apple version of Fierce Gatorade. Very, very good, actually. I have this one and the blue cherry. Those ones are very, very yummy. If you were curious, they're very, very good. Let me take a look at the thumbnail, make sure everything is good to go. So here. 1 second, guys. Making sure everything's good. Getting my... I didn't check the thumbnail. I'm going to check the thumbnail now. Hold on. It looks good. Good. Perfect. Hopefully you'll come into the chat tonight. We're going to be talking mail call I got just today. And we're going to be talking the Game of Thrones series finale, the very last episode of Game of Thrones, which happened last night. Hey, Jacob, Linda, thanks for coming into the chat tonight. We're talking a little bit of mail call action, and then we're going to be doing Game of Thrones series finale. There are going to be spoilers in this stream. If you've not seen the end episode, which was last night, which aired on the 19th of May, we're going to be doing that tonight. I'll give you my analysis of what I thought of the episode, just some kind of thoughts about it, because a lot of people got rubbed the wrong way with that. So hopefully you stay tuned for it. Hopefully you're still in the stream. I didn't lose anybody, so I'm not losing any frames tonight. Everything looks good. I got a new shirt on. Let me take a back a little bit here. It's an Elite shirt because I'm a big wrestling fan, and the Elite, or All Elite Wrestling, which is a new wrestling promotion. Shirt looks pretty cool. I got it at Hot Topic. It's the Cleaner Kenny Omega, and you see the Cleaner right there, which is his persona he was known as in New Japan Wrestling. Very, very cool shirt. Very happy to finally to see. I saw this shirt before, but I didn't really get a good look at it. All Elite's doing these new shirts because of All Elite Wrestling, and it's very, very neat. So hopefully you guys will be interested in the chat tonight. Again, we're talking mail call. I have an item I just received today. I haven't unboxed it yet. That's going to be a review for a later date. I want to show a quick display of what it is, what I got, and why I picked it up. So I will hopefully get that about 10 minutes into this stream. The rest of the time will be dedicated specifically for Game of Thrones. It might run over 9:30. I don't know yet. Depends how much I have to talk and what you guys want to talk about in the chat. So that is the current analysis of what we're going to be doing tonight. Again, drink of choices. We're going to be doing some Gatorade Green Apple, which is a very good flavor. We'll give it another minute or so for everybody to get into the chat. Hopefully it'll be pretty good. A lot to talk about in Game of Thrones. There was a lot of backlash for this season, and a lot of people were very, very aggravated with it. I'm one of those people as well, and it seemed because that they lost some of the source material for George R. R. Martin's books, because he only written 5 books as far as Game of Thrones itself goes, and that's no small feat in and of itself, because each one of those books are between 500 to 700 pages each book, and it was supposed to be 7 books. But HBO has did it in a way where they're taking books, they're cutting books that were 1 book into 2 seasons, and this is uncharted territory for Game of Thrones. And there was a lot of backlash because of that. I want to talk about that going forward in the stream tonight. So, a second here. We're going to be doing some good stuff. Give me 1 second, guys. Hold on. I've got to delete some stuff. Perfect. Yes, Jacob, and there were some issues that I had with it, which I'll talk about after the mail call. So, welcome to the 9 p.m. stream tonight on Monday, May 20th, 2019. Again, we're talking really quickly first about mail call. I ordered a product a couple days ago on Amazon. It was out of stock for several weeks now, and they finally received some in stock. This was the last one they had in stock. I was very happy to get my hands on it. If you guys don't know, or you're new to the channel, or even new to the stream, new to the channel itself, I'm a really, really big, not only am I a big wrestling fan, I'm a big DC Comics fan. I'm a big Green Lantern fan. If you're new to the channel, you may not know anything about me. I'm a massive Green Lantern fan. I started collecting Green Lantern back in '94, when there was the changing of the guard, when they switched to the original Green Lantern, which was Hal Jordan. He went crazy, destroyed all of Coast City. Coast City got blown apart, basically. He went on a rampage and destroyed all the Guardians. He then became a character called Parallax. So then the rings. There's a whole big story called Emerald Twilight. You have to read it if you don't know anything about it. And the rings all the rings were destroyed except for one ring. Ganthet made and gave it to a guy in the street, which was a guy by the name of Kyle Rayner, who is my Green Lantern. You may notice the picture on the bottom of the chat box, that black box, where you see where it says Rook Geek Goodness with the energy construct coming up with the lettering. That is Kyle Rayner's original costume, and I'll get to that in a second here, because we have a mail call. I haven't showed you guys this yet at all. I just received it today, as I mentioned. So, as I mentioned, I'm a very, very big Green Lantern fan, and I had to pick this up. I knew about it going into, it was either a San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, or a Toy Fair of last year. I'm not sure which one talked about it, but it was this particular item. It's from the DC Multiverse. It is the Kyle Rayner to the DC Multiverse. This is a collect and connect to build Lobo. There's only 4 figures in the wave to build Lobo. You need Kid Flash, Batman Beyond, you need Earth 2 Superman, and of course Kyle Rayner. I'm probably going to pick up this full wave. I'm very, very tempted to get the entire wave, because all the characters in this wave are pretty good. I'm not a big fan of the Kid Flash one, but the Batman Beyond looks really good. The Earth 2 Superman looks very, very good. Of course, Kyle Rayner. He comes with the legs, which are over here. But this is his original outfit. If you look in the corner over here, you see my little picture of myself, done as a little Funko Pop. This is his outfit. This is the original outfit that Kyle Rayner had when he broke into comics, when he created his suit. This is the suit he had. I apologize for a lot of the glare. Hey, Bizarro Supergirl, how's it going? So this is the Kyle Rayner for the mail call. And if you are curious, yes, I do indeed have the other Mattel Kyle Rayner, which came out several years ago, part of a Green Lantern wave, which was this figure right here. Comes with a construct sword and a power battery. If you notice here, the power battery is very similar to the power battery here. It's a little bit different design, but sort of the aesthetic for the power battery that Kyle has, which is this big, clunky one right here. This is what he's normally had. But I'm going to do a comparison to this figure against this figure when I do my unboxing video. When I do my full breakdown, near the ending of it, I'm going to bring this figure out here. He does come with this honking, massive construct sword. This is all one solid piece. If you were curious, you just pop it off. It is shaped with a glove hand that simply slips onto the construct hand. You literally plug it into the fist area. If I can do it here. Hear me doing all this talk, and now I can't even get the damn thing back in. That's just my luck. You have to push it in. You got to slide it in, and it pops literally into his hand. It's a very cool effect. Would I have given this to Kyle? I don't know. I would have given him something smaller, very similar to this character right here. This version of Kyle Rayner has like an energy construct blast right here. It might be coming across like a different color because it's not as bright as you see it here. It's super bright right here. In this yellow that you see right here. This green here is much more green than this one here. This is more neon, like a lime green to a dark neon green. So, if you are curious, they are different. This version that you saw for Kyle Rayner right here is more of a modern suit he had until the Rebirth comics, which he went back to this design suit. This suit I love. I think this is a very, very cool suit. I don't have this style yet for Kyle Rayner. This will be unboxed. This will be left out of packaging because when I usually do my Green Lantern stuff, with the exception of the Jessica Cruz figure, all my Green Lantern figures are unboxed, and I keep them on display intentionally. Hey Rainbow, how's it going, sir? So, very cool figure. Very, very happy to get it, and I'm definitely going to get probably all the figures to create the Lobo Collect and Connect. This is more of, I would say, it looks more like the 52 Lobo. I'll get a little closer so you can see what it looks like. It doesn't look like the Rebirth logo to me. It looks a little different. But I do like the chain he comes with. The boots look really cool. The vest. But I think it's a very cool figure, but I'm very happy to get the Kyle Rayner into my collection. Awesome, Rainbow. Hopefully you got something good. So, as I mentioned, I just clear my phone here. As I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a huge discussion right now with Game of Thrones. If you're a Game of Thrones fan and you have not watched last night's episode, which was the series finale of Game of Thrones, there are no more new episodes of Game of Thrones in this continuity of the show. There is talks of doing a prequel, which will date back from what I've heard, this is all hearsay, about 5,000 years before the story of Game of Thrones that you know now. This, of course, could be incorrect. This has been information I've heard, did my research, and I know they're going to do. I think there's two projects in the works. There's that one, and there's going to be probably another spin-off, which might be what have happened in last night's episode. Now, if you have not watched the episode, I highly recommend leaving the chat now because there are going to be spoilers coming in hot and heavy right now. In three, two, one. So let's talk Game of Thrones. Let's talk kind of what happened last night. I usually don't do a big recap or ending for a series, but this show. Oh, cool. Very cool, Adam. Rainbow. Very, very cool. I have seen some of the figures for that set. But it was a very heartbreaking episode last night. It ran 80 minutes. First and foremost, that was the biggest problem with this season. It ran too short. We only had 6 episodes in this season. Each one was over 30 minutes, over an hour each one, up to an hour or over an hour. So I would say the last 2 episodes one was, I think it was 96 minutes last week's. This week's was 80 minutes. These should have been longer episodes or have more of them. This should have been a 2-hour, this should have been a 120-minute episode. It should have been 2 hours, not 90 minutes, to get everything, to get your point across. There was a lot of, it was a very despairing episode. Tyrion breaks in the beginning where you see King's Landing obliterated. You saw a trench of fire and death. The Mad Queen, which is what Daenerys turned into, and a lot of people will talk about this on the internet, and they use wrestling nomenclature. And if you're not familiar with wrestling nomenclature, this will go over your head. Even my girlfriend had no clue about this. She didn't understand when I mentioned to her the terminology. She didn't get it until I really pointed out what it meant. A lot of sites will talk about. First, want to make sure in the chat, guys, is the sound okay? Let me know, because again, I cannot hear myself talking. I'll get a lot of reverb, and I don't want the reverb to interfere with the chat. Just let me know if the sound is okay, please. They use the terminology of Daenerys had what was called a quote-unquote heel turn. A heel turn in wrestling, if you're not familiar, is when a good guy becomes a bad guy, or a good guy does something that's very bad. That's what's called a heel turn. On the flip side, you have a bad guy doing something good. That's called a face turn or baby face turn. That's wrestling nomenclature. So if you're not familiar with her having a heel turn, you won't get it. It's, again, wrestling nomenclature. So there was a lot of talk that this happened too quick. You would expect this to happen through a season much faster, and then it's like taking a lobster and dropping it in a pot of boiling water. It's just super quick, and boom, it's done. I hate to use that analogy, but it was so fast. It was like this for her heel turn. It was not expected. They dropped subtle hints a little bit. David Doga, thank you for coming into the chat. Absolutely. I agree 100%. It was very, very rushed, too quick. If they was able to take it like maybe during the end of season 7 into season 8, and you saw Daenerys' her mentality slowly slipping and becoming more vicious in her intent. She freed the slaves of Moran, and the breaker of chains, so forth and so on. She's done horrendous acts, but acts for the greater good. This was no good in this. She freed slaves back in Moran and things like that. The Unsullied, all those stuff. This didn't really feel that way. It felt too forced. It felt like the square peg into the round hole. It went off the rails extremely fast. And that's what I think part of people's aggravation is with this show. Another big concern I had going into this final episode was apparently you had 2 of the greatest tacticians when it came to battlefield strategy with Varys and Tyrion. There was no battlefield strategy. When they went to sack King's Landing, you had the army sitting out there. You had multiple artilleries sitting on top of a castle wall. They were going to parlay, meaning it's a terminology in war times when you do what's called a parlay, meaning you're coming in a non-combative role, usually in a neutral territory, usually away from your area, away from your castle, away from your people. You have maybe your guards, whatever, off to the side. You're meeting in a neutral environment, so there's no benefit between both parties. When you have your spokesman coming out to speak to the other spokesman, and you have a huge castle artillery behind you, that is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. The dragon is a quarter of a mile away. Did they bother seeing how far the distance was? The Scorpions could have hit Drogon. Things like this is what I'm talking about when there was no battlefield strategy. The fight during Winterfell was horrendous because it was extremely dark, and you had to really tweak your television set to see what was going on. There's a lot of talk about this. The internet blew up with that episode, so I don't want to really delve too deep. But there was no battlefield tactics with that. You had dragons. You saw how powerful they become. Did literally absolutely nothing in that fight. They got lost in the clouds. You have a dragon that's going to rain fire down on an enemy. You don't have the dragon flying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet in the air. What you see, at least from Winterfell's battle, the White Walkers really didn't have any artillery. They had no bowmen, they had no catapults, they had no siege equipment. You could have just rained the dragons down and just wreck face. Why they didn't do that? That's what they call what's called plot armor. If you're not familiar with the writing terminology, is where things that don't happen because of the protagonist or a reason have a shell, or it's called a magic shell or magic shield, where the good guy can't be harmed or affected because of storyline. That's sort of what happened here, where I don't know why they decided to use this plot armor to not use the dragons. I don't get it. You could have had a dogfight happening in low on let's say a couple, 100 feet off the ground, 50 feet off the ground, where both Rhaegal and Drogon going against Viserion in mid-air combat. It would have been very, very cool. Why they decided to do this? It's, again, plot armor. I don't know why they did this. I don't know if George R. R. Martin's original vision for this fight in Book 7, when it eventually gets to it, would have happened here. And that's part of the problem, kind of circling back a little bit. Let me circle forward a little bit. There's also part of the problem you're running into a Game of Thrones. They've only written, George R. R. Martin's only written 5 books. And again, that's a Herculean feat. He's written 5 books. That's sort of his crown, his opus, so to speak. That's his greatest work he's ever put out. He's put out a lot of stuff before, but this is his grand fantasy novel series. The Song of Game of Thrones, the Song of Ice and Fire. That's his big opus, his big work, his greatest work ever. But he's written 5 books. Season 6 and 7, there are no books for it. You dabbled, I think, the 5th book. I think it was part of the territory of the 6th season. But season 7 and 8, there were no books for it. I don't know if it would have been cooler if the Night King would have won, but he got punked out really, really easy, and I can see why they did it the way they did it. But even made it some of the additional footage you'll listen to when you watch some of the additional commentary on HBO, that Jon Snow is supposed to be the proverbial protagonist. He's the real hero of the story. They even said in interviews they didn't want Jon Snow to be the hero, which doesn't make any sense. You're building up Jon Snow as this hero who's literally been, he has no real parentage. He's a bastard. He has no real tie to anything. He gets put onto the wall, join the Night Watch, he gets the black. No problem, Bizarro. Take care. I don't want to spoil anything for you. That's why I said spoiler alert. No worries. Thanks for coming in the chat. So the biggest problem I had was Jon was this character that was really built as the main hero. And mind you, I haven't read all the books. I got almost through Game of Thrones, the very first book. I haven't read any of the books. I know that after the first series, the first book, the story takes a wide berth. It starts breaking apart from where the HBO story is versus where the books are. You have characters that were alive in the book that are dead in the TV show, and the characters that are dead in the TV show that are alive in the book. They've taken one character that you see on TV, might have been 2 or 3 characters that were combined in the book. So they've taken drastic artistic license to change how these books work in their own vision. Mind you, George R. R. Martin said this is where he wanted the story to go. He's written notes out, told them, hey, here's my vision, here's what's going to happen. I think he said this mainly because in case he would have passed away or died before he finished these books, the story would have kept going and they would have known to the conclusion what would have happened. Going back to the end episode, that was sort of a bit of a tangent, but going back to the end episode, there was death and despair everywhere. The dragon obliterated the entire town. You had Tyrion had to get confirmation that Cersei and Jaime were dead. Why? I don't know why you really needed to have that piece of the episode there. I don't think, coming from Tyrion's point of view. Yes, I can see that. He had a plan saying to get into the crypts, get into the bottom of the castle, and get out. There was a sort of smuggler's tunnel to get out. There was a collapse. No one could get out. That's sort of what happened. I get that. He went to check the bodies. He went to check, see what's got down there, and he found both corpses. I don't really know if you really needed to say that. They could have had people going down there and pulling bodies out, and you could have just had, a tarp over them where you just see a golden hand dangling. That would have been enough to tell Tyrion that they're gone. I don't think that piece of the episode was needed. Um, Him getting basically he comes to see Daenerys on the castle where the main portion of the keep. There's Unsullied on the far sides, which is weird because it looked like they got obliterated during the Battle of Winterfell. And I was talking to a coworker at work today, and you would make the assumption the army of the Unsullied was wiped clean. That they only had so many men left in reserve, but when they were the shot pans up basically, and you see the red keep and Unsullied all across the staircase just filled with troops. I'm like, and I even talked to my coworker, and we're like, where did all these men come from? It looked like there was no army left. They were completely obliterated in that last battle, so it didn't make any sense. Of course, Tyrion coming out speaking to Daenerys. They're talking about what happened, how she butchered an entire town, killed all the civilians. They were used as basic fodder. She didn't care. Yeah, it's another plot hole, David. We'll talk about that shortly. The part where Tyrion takes the hand of the queen off and throws it down. He gets pulled away to be, of course, incarcerated, and of course, as we all know, that the Mad Queen Daenerys doesn't take prisoners. There was a very poignant scene where you had Lannister men on their knees surrendering. Bavros, Davros was there, saying these men are, these are prisoners, this and that, and they're to be executed. They're prisoners of war, and they're getting their necks slit. It was a very brutal scene to watch. War is extremely violent and brutal. There was a lot of death there, and it hit home to the point here. It wasn't right. And of course, during more of this whole exposition, Tyrion gets pulled off, thrown in chains. His beard's getting much thicker now. He's been down there for a while. Jon has a conversation with him that goes kind of south really, really quick and changes his way of thinking. And a very, very surprise piece happens where Jon comes walking out after he has a conversation with Tyrion. Jon comes out and he goes near the Red Keep, and you see like this big snowbank, and the snowbank shakes, and you see Drogon get up. This is the big point I have. You have a dragon that looks to be guarding the queen. You have no men guarding the queen herself, which makes absolutely no sense. You have Grey Worm, which is her master of arms now, which is what he was anointed at in this episode, which didn't make any sense. You have Jon coming up to meet her, and this goes back to, I believe, season 2, where she had the vision of the destroyed Red Keep, and she's walking in, about to touch the throne, and she woke up. You saw white coming down from the ceiling. The castle was obliterated. We all thought it was snow. In this case, it was really ash. She destroyed everything. So ash was raining down. She goes to touch the throne, has a conversation with Jon, and they go to embrace. He looks to be giving her a kiss, and you hear a knife sound, and you don't see what happens. It pans down, and you see a dagger stuck into Daenerys' chest. Jon kills Daenerys. Very, very poignant, very powerful piece of cinema. I didn't think he would have it in him, which didn't make any sense. She was his queen. He bent the knee to her. It broke character again. This is again talking about Daenerys turning so fast. Didn't make any sense. And Drogon kind of swoops in here, goes literally crazy, and sees what happens, nudges her like a dog would nudge her owner, and literally goes on a warpath and starts spewing fire everywhere, and spews fire and melts the entire Iron Throne. Again, we were talking with co-workers. It would have been very, very cool if the throne would have melted and you would have saw maybe a dragon egg inside the throne. That would have been very cool as well, to having another dragon. That would have been a neat little, playing a little fanfare right there. But they didn't do anything like that. Throne was destroyed, which this part didn't make any sense. There's no witness, and Drogon then picks up Daenerys' body and flies away. So you have no body, you have no weapon that killed her. Drogon takes off. Did Jon just come clean? Did Jon just say, "Yeah, I did it. I killed Daenerys"? Did he fess up? And he gets thrown in the stockade as well. Time passes during this whole event. A lot of time goes by. And this part didn't make any sense. Time passes, and you see sort of a war council. You see Tyrion come out. Jon Snow's in prison at the time, and you see a lot of families that are trying to get together, and they're talking, and they want to make some type of way of picking a king now because Daenerys is dead, and Jon has no rights to the crown. Again, doesn't make any sense. So they decided to pick a king, and there's a lot more to it. I'm skipping a few beats. I'm trying to wrap this up as quick as I can in 20 minutes. So they decide to pick. They want to vote for a king. So there's no longer a hierarchy when it comes to birthright, meaning you're born into this hierarchy of ruling the seven kingdoms to sit on now what would have been the Iron Throne. There is no more Iron Throne; it got destroyed. So they're trying to pick a leader or a king. They decided to vote for why? Bran the Broken. This made absolutely no sense. He is the embodiment of knowledge in Westeros because he's a three-eyed raven. We all know that. He has knowledge of both the past and the future. We all know that as well. He cannot bear children. Again, doesn't make any sense. He is broken both in body and reproductive capability. He can't foster any children. Again, doesn't make any sense. This part didn't make any sense to me. I don't know why they went this road. Bran had no real impact in the story this season, really, except being bait in the third episode when he drew the Night King out. That was the only real bit that you want to say that he played any real role in. He didn't do a whole lot. His dialogue was very, very small. He didn't do really anything to really progress the story. It was very, very shameful when they took this character to be the now person who sits on the throne. Doesn't make any sense. Tyrion basically when they vote him in, Bran becomes the new king. He needs a hand. He wants Tyrion. Tyrion doesn't want the job. He says, "I'm not going to take it. I don't want it." He's like, too bad. That's your punishment. That's what happened basically. And Bran's like, "I don't want it." And Bran's like, "I don't want to be king either." And that's what happened. They bring Jon back out, and he has to now rejoin the Night's Watch. He has to wear the black again. Remember, he died originally, got out of it, and if you remember, I think it was Maester Armin, who was a Targaryen in, I think, the third or fourth season, who made sort of a little quote. I didn't really pick up on this, saying that once you're in the Brothers' Watch, you'll always come back to the Brothers' Watch, to the Night Watch. And that's what happened here. Even though he died, he in turn came back to the Night's Watch. So the Targaryen, the Maester, the blind guy who died, eventually was true to his word. He did in fact come back to the Night's Watch. He meets up with Giantsbane, with Tormund again. He meets up with Ghost. So we see this little bonding there, which is very, very cool. To go back to David Doka was talking about that we have one of the things at that council I didn't touch a base on was that Sansa is no longer wants to become an independent nation. So there's used to be the seven kingdoms, now it's the six kingdoms. The North is its own independent community. It has no bearing to the crown itself. They're a sovereign nation in all relevance here. So it was very cool to see her getting knighted, getting her crown, become Queen of the North. Very, very cool. Sansa was talking about this and saying, "I'm going to go west." She wanted to go what's west of Westeros. And they're like, they don't know the map. There's no maps for that far. This is where David Doka, what I think might happen is this would be a perfect opportunity for a spin-off show. Having Arya as the perpetual lead of the show. I can definitely see that happening. Because remember, one of the visions they had that she's supposed to close Brown Eyes, Blue Eyes, and Green Eyes. Brown Eyes, of course, was the guy from the twins. She killed him, wearing the face of one of his wives. Arya was wearing it. She killed the Night King, which had blue eyes, but the green eyes never happened. We were thinking about it at work. Would have been very, very cool if they would have done something along the lines of this is playing what would be armchair quarterback right now. This is a little bit of fantasy booking. What if for example, Arya got to Cersei, killed Cersei, took Cersei's face, and you don't see this ever happening, and you see Cersei kill Daenerys, and then pull the mask off, and it's Arya. That would have been a huge, huge turn. Something no one would have expected to see. That would have been awesome. That way you would still have Jon ruling the North. He would have had heir to the throne. It would have worked that way. Why? I don't know why they went this route. It doesn't make sense to me. But being as far as the Westeros goes, where she's going to go west, I can see that happening. Jon took all the wildlings out of Castle Black, out of the wall. Mind you, the wall had a huge, I mean, a hole blown through it by Viserion in the end of the seventh season. So they would have to either patch that wall together or do something to fix it. So who knows what they're going to do there. The wall's not really keeping anything out. You can just walk through that hole. They didn't really show you it patched up or fixed. So who knows what happened here. So there was a good time between when Jon went back to Castle Black. There was some time that has passed. It did look like Arya became the captain of her own ship, because it has a Stark banner. So she is the captain of that ship going west. But all in all, I think Game of Thrones, the biggest problem I have with it, it lost a lot of direction from season 7 to season 8. Both seasons, I think, lost a lot of direction, a lot of momentum. It pulled silly amounts of numbers, 18 million, 19 million viewers. That's not what I'm talking about. They have petitions saying they want them to redo the entire 8th season. There's over 1 million signatures for this petition. People didn't like it. They're hoping for, I wouldn't even use a happy ending, but a better ending than what we got. People didn't like it. And even though Game of Thrones is a huge intellectual property, it leaves a very, very sour taste in people's mouths to invest in further things. And the D&D brothers, or group, I think they're brothers, or the producers, co-producers, those two guys, they are going to be doing the next Star Wars movies. So if this left a bad taste in people's mouths, who knows what it's going to be for Star Wars? They're going to be handling the next trilogy, so it might have killed Star Wars momentum before it even got out the gate. So I mean, there's a lot of people who were very upset with this season. I enjoyed it for parts of it, but not all of it. I don't know why there's no tactics or battle strategy used in this season. Didn't make any sense. You don't put artillery right next to people that you're trying to parlay with. Didn't make any sense at all. The sea combat where Rhaegal got destroyed and shot out of the air, way too easy. There should have been scouts going out taking a look at your enemies, your positioning. None of this stuff really made any sense. And that's the biggest problem I have with this season of Game of Thrones. And we're coming up to the 9:30 mark. I want to thank everybody who came into the chat tonight. I know we didn't have a lot of people, but I really want to talk my feelings of Game of Thrones, the series finale. If you didn't watch tonight's episode, I highly recommend watching it in sequence. If you didn't watch any of the 8th season, again, watch it in succession. It makes a little bit of sense from a storytelling perspective, but even from a storytelling perspective, there were glaring loopholes or problems in this season. So I want to thank everybody who came into the chat. Remember to watch me on this video on demand. It will be going up later tonight. If you came into the chat late, I do apologize, but thank you everyone who came into the chat tonight. I'm going to be ending it in 3, 2, 1. Take care, guys. See ya, and bye-bye.